Okay, certainly a little bit about Infinium, because a number of people probably won't have heard of Infinium, despite the fact our products are all around you, in fact all over the globe. 1 in 3 of the world's vehicles contain our products. Actually, we're also not just involved with putting additives that turn oils into lubricants. We're also involved substantially within the transmission market, and then also particularly 1/2 of the world's large marine vessels contain our products in those engines. And, relevant to this particular presentation, in fact, our fuel additives are used in more than 150 million tonnes of diesel or diesel-type fuel, and that includes, therefore, biofuel-containing fuel as well. And ultimately, it's important to note that every one of our developments are associated with reducing the environmental impact of transportation. And significantly also, as we're in a year where we're celebrating being British, Infinium is indeed a UK-incorporated company. So I want to say a little bit about the changing fuels marketplace. Fortunately, Dominic has already done some of that for me very, very nicely. It is an era of striking change in transport fuels. It obviously does include the hydrogen from as mentioned by the previous presenter. And what is causing that, of course, it's the environmental legislation, which is greatly impacting the fuel blend stock formulation, and also equally the design of engine and emission systems are themselves creating quite some issues as well, and there's some opportunities for improvement in overall performance. There are challenges created by future fuels, sometimes in areas where you wouldn't expect. Most people might think that sulphur is a bad actor in terms of the environment, and I'm not going to argue against that, but it happens to have a desirable, at least in the past, a desirable performance feature when used both in gasoline fuels and particularly in diesel fuels, with regard to providing a lubricity for the fuel in the engine, in the fuel delivery system. And in fact, Infinium was one of the first companies involved with developing additives which facilitate the introduction of low sulphur fuel. Of course, we've heard about the growing use of bio-originated fuel components, and actually all of these issues, there are a number of issues that are created by that, including, of course, that there are very substantial variabilities in the quality of fuels, both from a geographical region and, importantly, even seasonally, according to when the crop and which crop is particularly used for a fuel at a certain point in time. And, of course, meantime, it's a competitive world, and you have to produce high-performing fuels at the lowest net cost. So it's necessary to, as well as then cope with or provide solutions that allow you to use those fuels and that they function effectively as themselves, it turns out those different fuels create some issues with regard to the lubricants that are used in the internal combustion engines as well. And Infinium indeed is extensively involved with developing additive solutions for those lubricants to facilitate the use of those different fuel types. That does include, and indeed, of course, as mentioned by Dominic, then bioethanol in gasoline is, of course, a major growth market, particularly in Brazil. But it does turn out that, indeed, partly related to the water that ethanol tends to absorb over a period of time, that can create significant problems in the engine, corrosion and sludge, and indeed we have to develop specifically tailored engine oil formulations in order to be able to cope with the problems of using what is not ultimately an ideal technological fuel. And then we move into the biodiesel area, typically known as the fatty acid methyl ester type, the FAME fuels. Then, in fact, there are many issues that are created by using such a component in what is, in fact, a delightfully technical solution in the form of a standard hydrocarbon diesel fuel. You add the bio component, and a number of issues tend to arise unless you formulate a way around that, both in terms of the fuel and the lubricant. And as far as the lubricant is concerned, it actually can reduce the lubricant lifetime itself by using bio components, increases wear, it can increase deposits in the engines, and that also can bring around an early demise of that particular engine type as well. There are considerations, even now, to the use of biocomponents in marine fuels. I'm not going to spend any time discussing that. There's both a huge opportunity, but also enormous issues created by the use of those components in marine applications. There are issues created by the use of biocomponents in fuels, particularly in relationship to cold flow. There always have been cold flow issues with diesel fuels, but they are exacerbated by the use of biocomponents. And there are requirements both to produce the materials which change the crystalline structure of the crystals as the fuel cools, and then also trying to prevent those crystals from settling, the so-called WASA additive, wax anti-settling additive. And finally, indeed, there are various solutions to try and cope with sometimes some difficult-to-treat combinations, different combinations of both the original diesel, hydrocarbon diesel component and the bio component. And technologies have to be developed to actually cope with those combinations. Lubricity I've already mentioned. Typically only an issue in markets where biofuels are not used. It turns out the biocomponent actually to a substantial degree resolves the lubricity issue. I think mentioned about biodiesel itself. There are issues, there are opportunities in fact to improve the efficiency of refineries by using additives during the course of the production of the fuels. Infinium is also involved recently in the development of some fuel-borne catalysts which actually facilitate the operation of the exhaust treatment systems in diesel engines. And finally, then indeed there are certain additives that can be added to fuels to improve their overall combustion and also maintain the cleanliness in the engine, which is vital to maintain the durability of that engine. So, just to summarise, now is a time indeed when fuel additives have become more essential than ever, as we're throwing more and more challenges into that fuel tank. And indeed, more and more challenges are finding a way through, even from that fuel tank, into the lubricant in the vehicle. It is a very challenging time with regard to today's and tomorrow's fuel industry. And it is actually important for the refiners, the marketers and the hardware developers, I mean therefore the development of the engines and fuel management systems, to understand entirely both that there are some benefits, there are many interactions created by the fuel components that are used in those engines. There are many potential harms that can arise. I haven't gone through anywhere near the range of details that would be appropriate to describe all of those issues that are created when you add biocomponents. I'm not negative to biocomponents. I just say you have to find solutions to manage them to be usable and durable in the long term. And indeed, a progressively diverse array of those components that are incorporated into fuels. So a final little sort of marketing plug, as it were, for Infinium is that we do indeed have the expertise. We're developing substantially further on that expertise and support for those advanced additives solutions which can allow the use of those various different components into future fuels. Thank you very much indeed.